Hello, my friends. In a moment, you're going to hear the voice of a pastor and a counselor named John Withers. He's a dear friend. We have literally traveled the world together. We have laughed. We have cried. He has helped me through some issues. He's helped my family members through some issues. Children, even my grandchildren. And I'm telling you, he's good. And I said, John, I do these videos on Monday. Would you say something to my men? And those ladies that may see this, we're all under shelter in place, and we're all going through something. And I just believe, John, you'll say something to encourage all of our hearts. So in a few moments, you're going to hear from my dear friend and brother, John Withers. God bless you. God bless you, John.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Withers. I'm the pastor here at New Hope Community Church in South San Francisco. Have you ever gone through some challenges in life, much like most of us have, and wondered have anybody else have ever gone through the challenges that you may be enduring at this point in time in your life? Sometimes we live in a fast-paced life, even with this virus that is going around. People are still out doing what they need to do or want to do. And yet we know that somehow, some way, there are challenges that we face every single day. I had a chance the other day to kind of reflect back on some of the challenges that it's been in my life. One, I remember when I was 38 years old, I was just a young man. I was working in the business world as a manager of facilities. Had been married to my wife about 14 years and had two daughters, and they were beginning to come somewhat into puberty. It was some challenging times for me. And at that point in time, I decided that I wanted to go back to school to get a formal degree in education. And I really wanted to go to seminary. And I had heard about that there was an extension program in Menlo Park at the oldest Catholic seminary in Northern California, which is St. Patrick's. So I go down there and I meet with the dean, and I asked him, I come to apply for going to seminary, to fill out the application and whatnot. And he asked me, so what is your undergrad in? And I said, undergrad? What is that? Unbeknownst to me, I didn't even have a clue. And he said, well, what is your college degree? I said, I don't have one. He said, young man, this is a grad school. I said, grad school? What is that? A graduate school. After you get your undergrad, then you can come and go to graduate school. He said, I tell you what, why don't you consider on going back to school and come back and see me in 4 or 5 years? Well, I live in San Francisco, and I lived there at the time. And I decided to go back to school to get a formal education while working a full-time job and raising a family and starting a church. And I never will forget when I had started, I knew that this was going to be some major challenges in my life. But after 5 years of hard work, I went back and I applied, and I saw the same professor there. And I asked him, do you remember me? He said, yes, I do. I said, well, I'm coming to apply for seminary. And he told me it probably is going to take me another 5 years. And it did take me another 5 years, and there was some challenging times trying to get through Greek and Hebrew to get a Master's of Divinity in Theology. And I had finished my undergrad at San Francisco State with an undergrad in English Lit with a minor in Speech and Communications. That gave me some foundation. But when I was working and going to school, there were some real challenging times. And I remember that one of the most challenging times was trying to learn the Greek and the Hebrew language. And in fact, I had flunked the Greek language twice. And someone told me that there was a professor over in Walnut Creek that was a great teacher and probably could help me. And I thought, wow, I'm alone in this. And so I would drive from San Francisco to my job in San Jose. At that time, I was the superintendent of the county of Santa Clara. And then I would leave from that job in the afternoon and drive to Walnut Creek. And I did that for 2 years over there in Walnut Creek to learn the languages. And then I would get out at 10 o'clock at night and drive to San Francisco. And I remember every night that I was there 2 or 3 times a week, getting out at 10:30, I would literally be crying because I was just overwhelmed with anxiety and challenges that was going on in my life. And the first person that I would call would be my wife. And she would just tell me, honey, just come on home. You're going to be all right. And she lifted me up. And I knew one thing, that you'll never be able to get through this world, no matter how good you are, how much talent and abilities you have, without an army of people holding up your arms and cheering you on. I have a good wife and great kids who looked up to me and cheered me on, and a host of good friends who believed in me at the same time. I remember when I went into St. Patrick's Seminary, and the oldest seminary built in 1890. And I saw these majestic stained glass windows. And I was in there by myself in the sanctuary, and I began to weep because I felt the presence of God there. And I said to the Lord, I wonder how it would be to speak in this seminary right here. And lo and behold, during the 5 years, it was the first time at Fullest Theological Seminary that 7 African-American men were graduating at the same time with a Master's of Divinity degree in theology. And I happened to be one of them. And they asked me to speak at my class graduation. I was overwhelmed with joy. And then I remember a good friend of mine who is now a bishop in Stockton. And he was staying at my parsonage as we were rebuilding the parsonage because he didn't want to go back to Stockton every night. He asked me could he stay there for a couple of weeks until he finished up his degree. And I agreed. He left me a note on the table and said this right here. And I never forget these 7 words. He was in it all the time. And I thought, only Jesus. You see, I believe that when we have a calling like we have right now, God gives us a tenacity. He gives us grit. He gives us mercy and grace and strength. And he gives us insurance and resilience that we're going to make it through it. You see, no matter what the challenges, no matter what the trial, the scripture says this in Romans 8:18, for I reckon that the sufferings of this so present time, it is not worthy to be compared to the glory which shall be revealed in us. One of the most amazing things when I was taking Greek and went over to Walnut Creek, I saw several of my friends who was over there and they too had flunked the class. It gave me great encouragement because I knew that I wasn't the only one that was in it. You see, that's the way to God that we serve. He won't leave you or forsake you in the time of need, no matter what you are going through, no matter what your challenges are in life. You know, the scripture says, among the multitude of counselors, there is safety. And you know, we need one another. We cannot get through these challenging times without one another. I need my family. I need friends. I need counselors. I need good people who are able to tell me with love where I'm going wrong and to help me to get back on track. And I think those are some of the things that have sustained me throughout these years. You know, I've been pastoring this church now for 16 years. Sometimes I wonder, where did the time go? And I got to tell you, being a pastor or a lay person, any person that's in any form of ministry, you're going to go through some challenging times. And one of the biggest challenges that I had perhaps was when I went to a time where I had been betrayed by good people. But you know what? Here's the deal. I'm still standing. You know what? Because I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than to dwell in the tents of the wickedness. And he who walks amongst the wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. You know, we have this thing in our household that if you leave the house and you come back, you got to make sure that you change clothes downstairs and then you go upstairs and take a shower. Make sure that nobody gets sick, that we all stay safe. And I remember my wife and I was keeping our granddaughter, and I want to tell you, I have this 10-month-old granddaughter, and I'm telling you, she's the joy of my heart. I used to hear people talk about grandchildren all the time, and they used to get on my last good nerve. Now I understand. But she was over to the house, and she was fussy, and she's crawling around and making all these Google noises. Finally, I told my wife, I said, you know what? It's time for her to go. And her mother, you know, because she had gotten on my last good nerve. And I remember this right here. If people are not on your heart, they're probably on your nerves. And so But it was funny to see because my wife said, "You gonna kick your granddaughter out?" I said, "I'm ready for them to go. I had enough." Sometimes we just have had enough. That's why we have to have good people on our side to be able to help us through the challenging times that we endure. I've learned something else, folks. If you can't laugh at yourself, chances are your family will laugh at you. That has certainly happened to me a time or two. I'm grateful for the people that are in my life. I'm grateful for the assemblies of God and great men and women of God that surround my life. I pray that God will bless you, give you strength, give you resilience, give you the ability to go through whatever you need to go through to see the hand of God continue to move. I want to just bless you. I pray that the living God that we serve will overshadow you and keep you until we see each other again. Bless you.